Hello, class. Today's presentation is brought to you by Team 18, which consists of Joseph Blaylock, Brandon Hewitt, Tiara Robinson, Alexis Sams, Vicky Thomas, and Heather Williams. And we will be discussing outsourcing software development. I'll begin by providing a definition for outsourcing in terms of software development. Outsourcing is an agreement in which an organization recruits a third-party MIS service provider to manage the organization's software development programs. MIS outsourcing agreements can vary from long-term contracts with large tech firms such as IBM to temporary arrangements with independent contractors. These arrangements are typically low risk and all provisions are tailored to fit the organization's specific needs. I'd also like to point out the fact that outsourcing is not something that's only used by startups or small businesses, but it's also a process that's used by large or well-established organizations as well. Outsourcing projects can include software consultation, custom software development, mobile app development, and automated business processes. The 6-step outsourcing process includes step 1, requirement analysis and project planning. Step 2, system study and design. Step 3, code development, unit testing and implementation. Step 4, deployment and integrated testing. Step 5, user acceptance testing. And step 6, maintenance and support.
Now that we've looked at what outsourcing is, now we can take a look at why some people and some organizations choose to outsource. There really isn't a singular reason that companies choose to outsource, but there's different aspects and different reasons as why they may do that. And a couple of those reasons may include the reduced cost of the operation. And so typically if a company isn't, set up to be a great in marketing or great in sales or, what have you, they can take that business operation in their organization and they can let some other organization, whether it, nearby in maybe the United States or maybe it's across the globe, they can take that part of their business function and they can let another organization do it for much cheaper cost. Another reason that some organizations may outsource is because of their rapid growth. There's so many organizations that grow so quickly that the personnel and resources that they have just cannot keep up with how fast they're growing. And so Amazon is a great example of how once their business platform kind of hit the ground, it just exploded and they just didn't have the resources. And so maybe they, outsource some of their, their delivery and other aspects of that operation. Another reason that companies may outsource is to acquire the best practices. And what we mean by that is, like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, that companies may outsource to find cheaper labor to do parts of their operations in their business. They also may do that to find better practices and more talented people to do specific parts of their business operations. And so by saying that, certain companies may take part of their business operations, let's say marketing, and they just don't have the capacity or the resources or the personnel to market their company at a quality clip. And so they may take that aspect and find someone who is just very good at marketing, and they may outsource that part of their business to someone else so that they can start firing on all cylinders. And usually that comes at a lower cost too. Another reason why companies may outsource is that it can help companies stay relevant. In the day and age of the Amazons and the Googles, it's so hard for every company to keep up with their innovation and their technology and the way that they have their business practices set up. And so for that mom and pop shop that's sitting in the middle of a small town that sells, small knickknacks, it's hard for them to keep up with their shipping and their pricing and their sales and their social media. It's harder for them to keep up with Amazon in that aspect. And so maybe they'll outsource some of their business operations so that they can at least keep up with different organizations near them and help to maintain their business platform and help them to stay relevant. Also, globalization is a reason that companies may outsource. In the day and age where outsourcing is so popular, we've come up with these terms called virtual neighbors, where America and China and all these other countries do it so frequently that it's just something that companies do today. And it's just it's the way of life for businesses to maintain relevance and to fire on all cylinders. And so with so many different reasons as to why people are outsourcing, it's important to know more than just what outsourcing is and why people outsource. What are the different types of outsourcing, and what are the different benefits that come with outsourcing? More importantly, what are certain challenges that companies and organizations may face when they outsource? And so we're going to turn next to Alexis, and she's going to discuss the different types of outsourcing.
Okay, so there are many different types of outsourcing. We're going to cover 3 of them. Different types of outsourcing are used in order to ensure companies are receiving the best rates, maintaining or growing their workforce, and providing a strategic plan for a business continuity. Onshore outsourcing is when a company has a partnership with someone in the same country for services. Nearshore outsourcing is when someone is contracting an outsourcing arrangement with a company in a nearby country. So if the U.S. went into business with Canada or any other countries in Latin America, it's often done with a country, like I said, who is neighbors with the original country. The types of outsourcing continued would be offshore outsourcing, choosing to partner with a developing country. User organizations and writing code, creating systems. These countries are typically far away from each other. An example of this would be Apple outsourcing to China. Nearshore outsourcing, an example would be America, again, outsourcing to somewhere in Latin America. So if they outsourced their customer service team to somewhere in Mexico. Onshore outsourcing, an example of that would be a local company outsourcing coding to a company based in another state.
Outsourcing benefits. Quality and efficiency of business processes are increased when you outsource. You have a reduced operating expenses for a headcount, and the exposure to risk for large capital investments is going to be low. Your access to outsourcing service providers, experience and economics for sale, best practices, and advanced technologies. So when a company outsources, not only do they increase their efficiency and they lower their cost because they obviously outsource that to a company.
Next slide.
Yep, it's okay. There's also increased flexibility for faster response to markup changes and less time to market for new product services. Services are faster and it promotes growth. My company has actually outsourced to IBM when it comes to all of our finances, and they're looking to save a lot of money as well as a lot of time and effort that IBM can put getting those financial records done in a faster manner.
So that brings us to some of the different outsourcing challenges that a company might face. Many of the different benefits that come from outsourcing can also be cons. So for example, training or getting new employees up to speed, it can be time consuming and expensive. If the uptime for a new employee is 6 months and you have to sign on new people to join your organization and you don't give them 6 months to do a project at least, then a lot of times you're going to end up with worse work. So this leads to long-term commitments to the outsourcing company, which can cause long-term investments and also prevent them from creating value if you don't give them an appropriate amount of time. This can also cause long-term Contracts with difficult to manage conditions. So if you have a very long-term contract and you have very specific goals and they aren't being met in time or any other type of thing, you're already invested. So the sunken ship fallacy kind of takes effect, and you don't want to abandon ship until it's finished, and they can kind of take advantage of you at that point. Next slide, please. And while outsourcing affects many different industries, the software development side of it experiences exacerbated symptoms. So product quality deterioration. Contractors do not have the same types of motivation as internal employees do for product quality. Somewhat of a locust mentality, where they approach a product, they work on it for a period of time, and then they leave. This isn't always the case, but it can be a common recurring theme among lower class contractors. A loss of timely deliverables to customers. As product quality deteriorates, it becomes less and less predictable about how much time it's going to actually take to make changes or make add-ons to anything that you already have. And then as you lose different contractors or gain new contractors, you can frequently lose domain knowledge. So whenever contractors leave, the development team or any type of team that's using outsourcing can lose the expertise that was developed through the initial creation of a product or its different parts. Next, please. And so that kind of brings us to the closing. There are various pros and cons to outsourcing software development, as we've discussed. It could save your company money, but it can also cause windows for data theft or communication restrictions. Each company needs to evaluate all the aspects and impacts to the business that outsourcing could mean for them. It's important to specify which tasks is needed to outsource and which type would be the best to use. Establishing the need and task could help in determining the service provider. Now the question is, would you prefer to outsource your software development after this presentation?